Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome you here for the board meeting for the commission for Good Health. Basically, we value any public input or comments, and if you would be so kind, either we have a couple people here in the audience that are online. If you'll notify John, either raising your hand or commenting to him, he'll bring that to our attention at that time. Also at this time, we do have to make one adjustment to the agenda, for consent. That I will put it after the board items, number 7, we would add the executive section at that point that we want to talk about a legal issue that came up, was unavailable, that we weren't able to get it on the agenda to start with. I apologize for that, but it just came up, so we'll go into executive session. That's okay with the board.
Assumption that it should be now and not delayed for a month.
Right. And so we'll do that as item number 8 and move down to commission's comments after that. Okay. So anyway, we need to have the consent agenda. A motion.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Move second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Move. Basically, are there any points of order? Point of order or anything else? Is there any public comments so far, John, online?
Not yet, but I'm going to say it.
Any public comments, Ben, sir?
I'm not going to be too long today. My
But you
name
can
is
give it-
Vicky McFarland. Live right here in the territory, saw the nice fire yesterday and everything else. So I'm glad that all turned out okay. Anyway, discussing the Everett, don't work anymore with the Everett Clinic. I'm over here with Teresa Murphy. Very, very happy with her. Comment I had was last week. I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I am using an infusion every 2 months. And last week I had Janssen Pharmaceutical call me. They are supplying the drug. And they wanted to know when my next infusion was going to be. Now, my rheumatoid doctor over at the Everett Clinic and people that work with them are supposed to let them know. They should never have to contact me in any way, shape, or form. Anyway, I told them, I said I'd get a hold of the doctor because they said if they wasn't contacted, I was going to have my whole thing discontinued and I'd have to start over and put paperwork in again. I called over at the Everett Clinic, got the information, sent it to the people and said, this is what's going to happen if you guys do not call Janssen and find out, get this thing taken care of. They told me I had to apply again already. I said, no. I said, I have through December of this year. I've already verified that. And they said, well, they didn't think so. And I said, well, you better just find out because this is going to be really, really, really bad if you don't. Anyway, they called me back 2 days later. The doctor was gone the next day. Then they called me back and they told me when my infusion was going to be. And I said, well, all of this was completely screwed up. I don't know what you guys are doing down there, but I do not want to have to work about this at all anymore. And she said, Janssen Pharmaceuticals should never have had to call you. And I said, they wouldn't have if you had done your job. Touche. So if they call you and ask anything, refer them to me. I would love to talk to them again.
Okay, you talk about the Everett Clinic.
Everett Clinic.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I'm not on.
Move on to the medical staff report. Dr. Lemons.
Thank you. For credentials this month, initial appointments. Anna C. Sturm, PAC, primary care Freeland, provisional active. Galen U. Pizzorno, MD, emergency medicine, provisional courtesy. Jason E. Rogers, MD, diagnostic imaging, courtesy.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the appointments.
Second the motion.
Moving second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
For advancements, Andrew Nguyen, MD, radiology courtesy. Puneet Gill, MD, telehospitalist courtesy. Mihir Patel, MD, telehospitalist courtesy. Michelle Sanborn, MD, telehospitalist courtesy. Ruham Ma, DO, telehospitalist courtesy. Sharon Manny, MD, telehospitalist courtesy. Akash Atreya, DO, telehospitalist courtesy. Arash Babaki, MD, telehospitalist courtesy. And Himal Kadakia, MD, telehospitalist courtesy.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the appointments.
Second.
Second, any discussion? In favor?
Aye.
And Dr. Lemire, are these the ones that we used on the floor for med surge? Billing?
Yes, the after hours.
After hours.
And for reappointments, Jared Kuo, MD, teleradiology courtesy. Shannon St. Clair, MD, teleradiology courtesy. Timothy Connor, MD, teleradiology courtesy. Amir Mirfar Skarkeka, MD, hematology oncology courtesy. Sean Stone, MD, teleradiology courtesy. Frank Well, MD, teleradiology courtesy. Wendy Wang, MD, hematology oncology courtesy. Veronica Rubo, DO, teleradiology courtesy. Mohammed Quarashi, MD, teleradiology courtesy. Jonathan Jaksha, MD, teleradiology courtesy. Stephen McCormick, MD, teleradiology courtesy. Jason Grennan, MD, teleradiology courtesy. And David Henley, MD, teleradiology courtesy.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the reappointments.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Move.
I'd like to just make one point, and I made it before, but it bears repeating. You can see the long list of appointments. What's important is behind the scenes, a significant number of hours of research and discovery have gone on. Seems like we say they're approved, et cetera. It's also gone through the executive medical committee, et cetera. So there's a lot of legwork and a lot of proof that creates that list. It's not just a yes.
Thank you for that recognition.
Yeah.
Heather, our medical staff, organizer has spent a lot of time this month in the credentials committee as well.
Sure, Michelle Albee,
Reviewing all of
Dr.
these
Gladstone.
positions and
Yeah.
making sure that they're all fully qualified to take care of our patients.
Takes months, a lot of time, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, greatly appreciates the work. that's put into that. Thank you. Anything else?
All right now, thank you.
Questions of Dr. Mooney? No. Okay, we'll move on to the health tech report.
Well, I certainly appreciate all the hospitality and I am pleased to represent Health Tech this month. I spoke with Faith Jones and learned that she was here last week. She was here about the palliative care, chronic care, and transition care management programs. Wellliant Health started the palliative care management and has now added the chronic care and transition care program. The palliative care coordinator is Annette, and she is working with patients and recruiting additional patients. She started billing the patients in June and is on track to increase the billables for July, which is great. The chronic care management and transition care coordinator, Carmen, is back. She just recently had a baby girl, and I understand that she has come back and she is hitting the ground running. She will be focusing on all of the rural health clinics, and she is starting with Cabot. And she has already started recruiting patients, and we are very excited that she will be cutting billables on her very first month back. So that is very exciting, and she is not only doing that, but she's working with the discharge planner to continue to recruit patients. And while Faith was here last week, she was able to have a meeting with all of the medical providers at Cabot. And she shared with them a presentation about the chronic care and transition care programs. She was very pleased with the engagement that the managers had and the questions that they had. And they seem to have received the information very well. Christian Moore, who is the clinic manager at Cabot, Faith was like, please give her a huge kudos. So I'm here to give Kristen Moore huge kudos that she coordinated things exceptionally well and had great follow through, and Faith thinks she's a rock star. So both of the care coordinators are doing great, and we're very pleased with the programs. And I have been exceptionally pleased this week with all of the input that I have received. John did an exceptional job of coordinating the schedules, and I have been very pleased with the schedule. I told John, I was like, oh my gosh, this is one of the best schedules I've had. And the fact that everybody has come in and been very candid with me in response to the questions that we had in preparation for strategic planning. And the interview summary resulting document will be a huge guide in the development of the strategic plan, and we're excited about presenting some of the results and a lot of the other information that goes into consideration when developing strategic plan in November. Anything else? Did we want to talk now about the actual retreat and the timing? Or do you want me to-
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay.
While you're there.
Yeah, so right now we typically have the first 3 days of November. Just need input from you guys on which one would work better. And whether or not we should do it all in one day, or if you want to break it up into more than one day. And so we just need your feedback. It doesn't have to be now, but look at your calendar, let us know what works best for you guys to do that retreat, and we'll make it happen. Can I add to that in?
Where are we gonna do the retreat at?
That's the second question, is whether we want to do it here or if we want to go off site. Certainly open for any ideas that you guys have. I'm not familiar enough with the area to make suggestions, so.
Yeah, I think we have the rough draft of the agenda before you, and so those things in red, we're looking for input from the board in terms of all of those different factors, and we'll look forward to your feedback.
Is there any comments from the board? My days might work, a little bit more time. Where we want to meet at?
I like our Thursdays. I'd like to state that because we're already committed on our Thursdays. We do a lot of work on Thursdays, so that's sort of a good day for me, so we should walk.
And do we just Thursdays work?
Oh, November.
Yeah, this far in advance, that's fine. And Morgan's got a good point. We pretty much have Thursdays
Yeah.
relegated. If we had other business, we may need to establish a special session though for our actual board meeting. So just heads up. My input would be that we should consider 2 days. If we finish early the second day, that's one thing, but I think people get tired, number one. Number two, you can reflect on it overnight and divide it into a 2 day, maybe, 5 hours each day, plus a lunch, a relaxed lunch, rather than cramming it all into one 8-hour day.
So why don't we want to plan for the Thursday, Friday?
We'll make it work. So Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, or you want both mornings, or does it matter?
Does not matter to me. Whatever works.
Whatever. Yeah, morning might work, Thursday and go to Friday morning.
Okay.
Anybody have a preference where we do this at? Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it right here.
Yeah.
The board is.
There has to be a Ritz-Carlton somewhere close by.
I say we save money and do it right here.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can actually. Yeah.
Or you go here.
Yeah, we're good.
So how's that? We made a decision on the Thursday and Friday, and then,
Thursday morning, Friday morning?
Yeah.
Okay,
and then, we'll do it right here at the office. We just have to make sure that John sets the conference up for us.
I think I actually have the dates already locked up.
we look into that too.
Okay.
John, like I said, John's great.
He's on it.
You can go home Saturday. Okay. That's good. Get that out of the way. Anything else about it that you can?
One caveat is we do have medical executive committee that Friday, so we may have to adjust the times based on that.
Yeah,
That's Friday,
so
November 3rd, isn't
we
it?
can do like on the Friday, we could do. 9 o'clock.
IBC is usually done by 9,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but we can be.
started
we
on
just can't start at 8, that's all I'm saying.
Right.
Cut it to Friday about 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to staff and staff reports from the administration. We start with our quality and compliance. Shanna.
Welcome, everyone. I'm working on the slide deck. Going over quality measures. So for the July meeting, policies up to date are at 19%, and we updated 137 policies in 1 month. So policies not updated by the end of summer will be archived. For infection prevention, when this report was created, COVID community transmission rate is low. Still tracking those numbers through infection prevention. Year to date, we have 0 device associated infections. It's phenomenal for this organization, and also 0 surgical site infections for a year in a year's time. Again, yes, amazing, that is right. Workplace violence, 8 events for June with no staff injuries. 7 of those were verbal and 1 was physical. The locations are listed there. 33 events year to date with 15 in the emergency department. So we are still partnering with Washington State Hospital Association on that de-escalation training for staff and providers. All right, for licensure surveys, we had a successful Department of Health DOH licensure survey in February, and all corrective action plans have been accepted. Department of Health surveys in May, all corrective action plans have also been accepted. For our accreditation survey, phenomenal DNV annual survey, that is that Norske Veritas, our accrediting organization. And they mentioned several different shout outs. So only 4 survey findings 2 years in a row. And kudos to everyone involved. Outstanding facilities record keeping. Outstanding sterile processing, call out specifically for Allison. A new telepsych program for the emergency department. Commit to sit among nursing staff, improving the patient experience. Outstanding quality management system and collegial hospitality teams all around. So again, successful DNV survey. So they'll be returning June of next year.
Shanna, before you move on, go back to the one slide.
Yes.
The only 4 survey findings. When they were here last time and talked to us, they were talking about some of the other hospitals. Our side, they've been going through this for a long time. And they made the comment that how many findings they were getting at the other hospitals compared to ours. They were amazed that we only had 4. So I mean, that's kudos to everybody involved, the staff that we had 4 findings compared to what other hospitals are getting out there. So you guys have all done a great job. So that's kudos to all the staff.
Correct. They were referencing 13 to 15 as their normal. So 4 is
Outstanding.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys have all done a great job.
All right, for education department, we are improving and standardizing the student onboarding process. But to note, both educators are now instructors for BLS, ACLS, and PALS for Vivi Health. So now we can start facilitating the first class for fall for the providers initially, and that's that 2-year certification. So now have to do it every quarter. CNA program Curtis will go over, but becoming that training facility with director of nursing, executive director of nursing leading that program. So successful clinical education skills day in all clinics on 7/12. And then preceptor workshop 8/22 is upcoming, and then planning hospital education skills day in September of this year. So that education, both educators are very busy, making sure we all have the skills that we need annually. For medical staff office, 23 reappointments, 5 initial, and total 251 credential providers. You can see those initial files in progress and the reappointments in queue of 39. So Heather is very busy in the medical staff office and keeping it all together. Patient experience for outpatient survey scores on a scale of 1 to 5 in the past 90 days would recommend to family and friends or would return if needed. Scores are noted below, and again, very high scores. And I do want to reflect the numbers are the amount of surveys that we've received for each area in the last 90 days. So last board meeting, you asked for a comparison breakdown by quarter, see where we're trending. So the first column is the emergency department, then primary specialty, sleep, back rehab, and walk-in clinics. And by quarter, they're listed out. And as you can see, they're increasing across the board, and every survey affects that score. Perfect.
And you can see the amount of survey responses at the bottom for each area. And we're in Q4 right now. Patient experience inpatient surveys, January through March of this year, we were above national averages in communication with nursing. Also communication about medicine and responsiveness of hospital staff, we're above national average. We're above national average with discharge information and cleanliness of hospital. Having patients rate the overall care from the hospital, the rating of 9 or 10 was 53%, and that national average is 72%. We did still have a low turnout on the surveys that were received. Any questions?
Is there anything, I'm sure there's more than one factor, Shannon. Is there any one thing that you attribute the general increase in the quality scores, the metrics over a period of time?
I think it's the focus of the organization as a whole. Clinic, hospital, everybody is focused on that quality service and scores. I mean, transparency of data is key. So we can see where we're improving, more opportunities for improvement, and that's available at the fingertips. And I think that speaks volumes to where we're going.
So number two, kind of a shout out through Tim, in terms of the facility. You know, to have a 85% satisfaction relative to the housekeeping and the overall appearance is a really big deal. And everybody in this room knows how it looks is how you perceive the services you're going to get. You know, the tray table's dirty and United on airplane, the engine maintenance must be bad as well. So it's a big deal. And the last thing, I think we could do a better job. And I know we're looking at an additional marketing, but I think that the community needs to know more of these things, particularly when you look at the quality ratings and the only 4 findings versus so and so. I mean, we have a story to tell and we need to tell it so that people know in advance. You know, I think every chance we get and every method that we have is really important from a strategic standpoint.
Agree.
You guys have to figure out how to do it.
I would also like to message that I think it, as the hospital it starts to stabilize, as we've done a good job and had tremendous change in this past year. Staff are now realizing our direction and embracing our vision and what we're trying to do. And with that confidence, it reflects in what's being done as well.
And that's what I was hoping to hear a little bit more about the
staff
culture
is really
and the attitude, you know, because if people feel good and obviously they're, you know, your hands and legs go where your heart goes, not the other way around.
Right.
I would like to add, from the viewpoint of our employees too, having that confidence in their hospital is strategically important. And it's kind of foundational as to service, as to the message out into the community. But these type of scores begin to fuel us because they will continue as long as we continue to do the hard work. So I thank all of you for all of your inputting and your guidance and your leadership. And now we have a new CEO that I is truly engaged, and I feel that that's helpful.
Questions you'd like to have, Dr. Shannon? Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you.
Moving on to operations and outpatient services, Dr. Miller.
Good afternoon. So things on the operations side, we are exploring joining an accountable care organization. That is a organization where our outcomes are the care that we provide to our patients under our supervision, the quality and cost is tracked. And if we're able to provide high quality care at a lower cost than historic data, then we can share in the savings that we generate for the Medicare program. And our quality team has been working really well. And we have, based on data we have right now, we are saving the government money on the basis of the quality work and the high quality and relatively low cost care that we're providing our patients compared to historic benchmarks. We're doing it already. Joining an accountable care organization will allow us to actually financially benefit from us continuing along that pathway. It also will prepare us for the future where this is how we're going to get paid as an organization. CMS has already told us that by the end of this decade, we have to be participating in a program like this. This will give us a chance to get started down this journey. So we're working towards that right now. We're working on opening a new primary care and walk-in clinic in Coopville. That's just getting off the ground in the planning phases. On the behavioral health front, we've hired our first psychiatric nurse practitioner a couple months ago. She has been so successful that she is booked out for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to recruit additional staff, but they're very hard to come by. What we've been looking into now, and we will continue to pursue, is adding telehealth, telepsych, outpatient services to support the outpatient needs, behavioral health needs of our community. So we're looking into that.
Dr. Miller, before you move on,
Yes.
they did a really good presentation to the county health. They came down and talked about where they're at with it and where they want to go. The county commissioners were all there. They're very impressed. They're very receptive to working to help us to get even additional funding, whatever it takes. They did a bang up job of doing a presentation down there, and that was comments throughout the audience and the county health and Department of Health. So I just wanted to tell you that, pass that on to you, that they did a really good job.
It's great to hear.
Didn't mean to interrupt you.
They're a great team. We have finalized an agreement to replace our current emergency department telepsych provider with a newer company that we think will provide us better service, especially when it comes to placement of patients that need specialized psychiatric services. That's hoping to go online in September. And then the additional aspect of behavioral health is we're looking into an intensive outpatient program for our elderly patients to treat patients that transition from inpatient behavioral health to outpatient status. You can transition them with what's called an intensive outpatient program that we can potentially provide here on campus. So looking into that, but also it's a missing piece of the behavioral health continuum that we can provide. That preliminary information that this is a program that we can provide in a sustainable fashion here. So you're looking at that. Our oncology clinic, which, as you know, is accredited by the American College of Surgeons Committee on Cancer. That's unique certification accreditation for a World Cancer Clinic. Our oncology group is expanding their presence here. We will have physician oncologists here in that clinic 5 days a week instead of 4, which is how it is currently. And that's an additional benefit to our patients on the island, so that they don't have to leave the island to get their specialized medical oncology services. And there's actually a recent presentation to our employee providers about the services that they provide here that was very well received by our providers. And then on the recruitment side, we have now completed successfully the recruitment for our general surgery and OBGYN departments. We're still looking for an orthopedic surgeon. And we have been very successful on the palliative care front, which you've already heard something about already. This is also a key piece of the continuum of care that will allow us to take care of the complex medical patients that need intensive outpatient care in order to keep them as healthy as possible, keep them out of our emergency room, keep them out of the hospital, and transition them to hospice when it's appropriate. So we've hired 2. We have one currently, Carla Jolly. She's fantastic, but she's also overwhelmed by the need. We hired a second one who will be joining us this fall. We're finishing up negotiations on a 3rd one, and a 4th one will be coming on site for an interview shortly. And we think that will really be a great addition to our primary care teams. and serve the needs of our community. Additional primary care, we've got 2 primary care providers coming, one in Cabot, one in Freeland, full-time for each of them. And we have 3 strong candidates in addition for primary care services that will be interviewing over the next few weeks. So it's very exciting primary care front. That concludes my report.
Good
job. Really good job. Nice job, everybody.
Any questions, Dr. Moore? Thank you, Dr. Moore. Now for our favorite thing, financial report. All right, it's our, no longer, he's our CFO. How's that?
Sounds good.
Can I interrupt you for a minute, Paul?
Sure.
And just take us back for a second. I know you're not in charge of marketing, Dr. Miller, but obviously acquisition is your job right now for providers and ancillary support. Do you have a basic game plan in your mind for how we're going to market these services? Because once again, if nobody knows what we have and all the changes, you know, they won't come. If they don't come, we can't provide the services and we can't bill, we can't pay. So it's a really big deal. And there's so many organizations that are lame when it comes to marketing. They're very proud of what they have, but they just don't take it seriously in the full gamut, presentations, announcements, publications, online, etc. Do you have a basic game plan for that?
Yes, I do, and I plan to work with our new marketing director when that person arrives to help support the marketing of our provider services. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, is this, I just think it's absolutely critical. And, you know, the ads that we have in LinkedIn, for example, for some of the recruiting you're doing they're great. They hit home. They're really professionally done. But I don't think the same thing is out there as yet. So look forward to hearing how that goes.
Dr. Miller, is it, we're bookending today, looks like. When these providers come to though, we do have within our walk-in clinics, we have the availability to promote those services. So I think grassroots wise, until we get our marketing in place, that our providers are doing an excellent job of referring in these new services, and urology, orthopedics, all of that are really great for us, especially with our senior population on living.
Yes, and you know, Connor's doing a great job. He's just one person.
Yes,
And the need is way bigger than what he can accomplish.
I agree.
You know, we have these stand-up posters for new providers that he's been able to deploy in various clinics and our entrances. But it's just so much work. And it absolutely must be done if we're going to be successful. If the communities don't know what we have to offer, then they're not going to come here.
It's too bad we don't have a board member that has a big neon, big sign, rear board sign right on the highway that we can see.
I'm looking for content all the time. But I have some content on there now. There's my 14-year-old granddaughter. She's really outstanding in golf. She's got a home run.
Oh, that's
There we go.
exciting.
At 14, how many people? Have all work. Yeah, so anyway, we'll break right there. You go. Thank you.
Anything else? No? Thank you.
Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right. So this is an introduction to the June numbers that you'll see in just a minute. Some of the highlights of the month include a total net surplus for the month of $17,183 versus the budgeted loss. So congratulations to all of our staff who provided for that positive surplus. Revenues were exceedingly high. Volumes were up. Expenses were up. It takes more supplies and more staff to care for more patients. Primary care visits exceeded budget by 474. And prior year by 377. So that line of our business continues to grow. And judging from Dr. Miller's comments a minute ago, we will have even more volume in that area. Hospital only outpatient visits also strong in comparison to budget and prior year. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention adjusted discharges exceeding budget by 33% and prior year by 21%.
What does that term mean?
So adjusted discharges consolidates all of the volumes in every service line that we provide here. It consolidates our volumes into one number, one single number. And there's a calculation for that. I can show it to you. But basically what this is saying is that we are 33% busier than was budgeted. And 21% higher than busier than we were in the prior year. So staff is working hard. On the liquidity front, days cash on hand increased by 1 and a fraction. We're at 52.2 days cash on hand as of June 30. No change in the current ratio. We've stuck around 1.9, 2.0. Net days in AR 49.4, still below 50, which is excellent. And I'll make a comment about retirement expenses. We have discovered that retirement expenses have been expensed in duplicate ever since September. They haven't been paid in duplicate, but they've been expensed in duplicate. We have a liability account that has continued to grow, and it reflects expenses on our P&L and a liability on our balance sheet that shouldn't be there. So we're going to be making a correction in the month of July. It's going to increase our bottom line by $1.184 million. So essentially what this is saying is we understated our earnings for the September through June period by about $100,000. And we're going to correct that next month. Any questions about that?
Questions?
That's great. All right, moving on to John, if you would please. Here's our financial statement, balance sheet, assets and liabilities, June 30, year to date versus prior year. Not a lot of difference here. On the P&L side, total operating revenues, $11,935,000 versus budget, $9,534,000, and very strong here in comparison on a year-to-date basis to budget. Total expenses significantly higher than budget as well. This is concerning to me. That's almost a $7 million increase in expenses. But what I'm going to show you in just a second on the next slide is something that gives me comfort. And it should give you comfort as well. And so if you would, John, move to the next slide. And go to the bottom. Right there. Operating expense per adjusted discharge. In spite of that increase in costs, it's costing us less this year than it did last year to deliver a unit of service. So What this is saying is that that increase in expenses is supported by those volumes. Net revenue for adjusted discharge. Also lower. Not necessarily a function of anything that we're doing, it's more a function of the type of patient we're seeing, inpatient versus outpatient, and their insurance. Because as we all know, some insurances don't pay what others do. Questions? Okay. John? It'll wait to the next slide. This is a slide we've all seen in the past, and it's just a refresher for you. Kind of where we are and where we've been with June 2023 here. So we've made good progress with reducing our net days in AR. And we're on a nice upward trend here with days cash on hand. And so moving on.
Do you have any kind of a gut level forecast for at the end of this fiscal year? You could do calendar or fiscal year. We're sitting here 6 months ago. What that day's cash on hand might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And your timing is impeccable.
It's a first. It's a first.
Go to the next slide, please. This is cash flow forecast, and at the bottom, of course, we've all seen this, but this upper section is total cash receipts broken down by where it's coming from, with the yellow being outliers. Like all this money that's going to come in November with our levy. John, if you move on down to the reimbursements or the disbursement section and keep going and continue to keep going. And we're there. So we're forecasting 43 days cash on hand at June 30 and 41 days cash on hand at December 31. And that 41 days is after paying a principal and interest here on our outstanding bonds. So we're expected to maintain.
But your goal is to get 141 days cash.
Exactly. Okay, so I got, yeah. Is there?
So is that doable? I mean, it's admirable, and I know we've talked about as far as a metric and a benchmark goal. And we've had a lot of adjustments over the last year alone that have really hit us, but we should be done. So do you see 100 days plus in our future at the end of the following year? Or should we lower our expectations?
I think we should
65.
lower our expectations for next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
The bonds, so still have.
So we'll go from 141 to 104.
Yeah, there you go. We'll catch a little bit of slack.
Maybe a little lower than that.
Well, I want to throw a caveat in there too, that Paul always seems to be quite conservative in these estimates.
Yes.
That's good.
I'm going to share some news with you next. I think we've done.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's going to have a positive bearing on cash flow. So we learned about something called an employee retention credit. Mr. Golder was integral in bringing that to my attention, along with Neil Todhunter, his team at Health Tech. And there was a lot of behind the scenes work that went into applying for this employee retention credit. Ally Huffman, Garth. Who was on the conference call with us?
She was on one of them, yeah.
Shannon, thank you. Yeah. Mr. Freeman. I'm also gonna mention a couple names that are unknown to you guys. Scott Manis and Patrick Banks at Gila Region, also Health Tech Hospitals, who went down this road as well. And I'll get to the point now. We're gonna be receiving a check in the next 6 months to the tune of almost $8 million that we will not have to repay.
Can you go back before we start talking, of course, and explain what that is? You gave the acronym, but there are people here that are on.
Yes,
All that you're talking about.
so this program became available. It's funded by the IRS. Get that, we're gonna be getting money from the IRS. During the COVID pandemic, small employers were considered a small employer. Who maintained a certain level of staffing in spite of reduced patient volume, are eligible to apply for this benefit. So we submitted a bunch of paperwork, and experts that handled this made the determination, and we just found out on Monday that we qualify. So it's essentially to reward us for doing the right thing with our staff during that period of time when we could have been sending them home because the volumes were here. Right? It actually, anything I need to add there, Nathan? Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I mean, basically it was that we maintained our workforces to the landlord. And maintain their ability to provide for their families and things like that. So this is an incentive to help smaller businesses be rewarded for that and kind of get back on their feet. So, yeah.
Is that minus commission, the 8 million?
That is after the commission. Any questions?
Obviously, as a board, we're gonna need to have some discussion, maybe not today, of course, in terms of, some form of input as to what is done with that 8 million in terms of debt retirement, and the other number of things, putting it in the bank, cash on hand, et cetera. Obviously, Mr. Gould will have a significant inputs. I'm gonna make a comment about you joining our team. I've worked with a lot of controllers and some CFOs, and I just got to tell you what everybody in this room or online is seeing in Paul is a no kidding, qualified, legitimate, competent CFO. And to do all this analysis, et cetera, is definitely higher level manipulation of data analysis. And we're really lucky to have you. I mean, it's giving me great confidence, and it should give everybody else.
I'm humbled to be here.
And in addition, you can explain things.
Yeah.
Well, in addition, we actually have reports. Good job.
Well, as far as the public's concerned, the public still has issues going on about how billing's done and things like that. They have to realize too that, by bringing you in here, you're having to rebuild our finances. And that's kind of rebuilding your whole team. And they have to be patient, that there's still some things going on. You've done a heck of a job on taking care of this and all the big issues. As you rebuild your team, you get a really good confident, team in there. It's really going to help the hospital further on, when people have an issue with, well, my bill's late, whatever. Those are coming. I mean, those corrections are going to be made, but we have to take the big issues and get them under control. We've done a great job.
Thank you.
But like I said, when the public's listening in, we're like, well, wait a minute, they're saying that the, CFO is doing a bang up job. Well, my bill's still messed up.
Right.
That's coming, it's being worked on, but.
We've got a long way to go there.
Yeah.
We're taking it one problem at a time,
Right.
and that's
Yeah, you're working through, it. Like I said, they just need to realize that You know, basically, it's like turning the whole finances of the hospital around, getting the right thing. And doing that part, and you have so many other things to take care of, but you are also rebuilding the finance team, so those things will come. But
I have a very good team.
Yeah.
We're building.
Yeah.
I might mention, this is a very positive development, but we are dealing with the government and Congress can get involved. And there's a lot of things that can go on. The last hospital that did this, it took them 6 months to get the check and we just submitted. So I would not be too optimistic until we actually see the money coming in the door. So try not to spend the money before we get it.
Yeah, and we will not be reporting earnings of $8 million in any of the forthcoming months.
I mean, appreciate the fact you bring the board up. You know, we've known about this going on. It's like nice to hear the good news that it's actually gonna happen, but you know, we also need to know that until that check was in the bank, not in the account. Anything else? We'll move on to Tim. You're gonna cover both IT and facilities. Walter.
Got lots going on. Thank you. So last Wednesday on the 12th, we closed on the new building. So we are in the process of getting that building approved. New flooring has been ordered, we can install it in the August. And then we will be moving into the new building. We located some services. We're still working through some of the details as far as who's going to be where for sure. Then it'll start the domino effect so that we can get primary care and a walk-in clinic to improve this. So that's a lot. We're moving forward. A lot of good things happening there. Last week, our mobile CT showed up. That is in place, was powered up. And on August 2nd, the existing CT will be removed. On August 7th, we have discussed a statement that will be done in the CT room. Earlier this week, the old floral was removed. So we're prepping because on August 8th, the contractor that was Trico who did the seclusion room in the ED, they were the low bid for this project. They will mobilize on the 8th and that work will begin. Mainly they'll start with CT and the old floral room, which will become the new X-ray room. That'll be the first phase. Once the new X-ray room is set up and running, then we can take down the X-ray room, get that work completed, and then bring in the floral. So we're looking at about 17 to 25 week construction schedule. The biggest thing that will determine when things actually go into use and operation is Department of Health and final and give us occupancy on those rooms. But good things happening and a lot of work will be done and new services coming in forward and returning that we haven't had for a few years. So lots of good things there. Also on August 7th, we will be taking out the old dishwasher in the kitchen. There's a lot of work that we have to do in the dish room. And then within a 2-week period, we'll have a new dishwasher, which we haven't had for quite some time. We've been hand washing everything. So another positive, good thing happening. The other big thing that we want to announce is this week was through the organizational culture committee. We've been working on the culture of the organization, trying to improve morale and customer service. One of the things that we worked on was, as the whole team, was improving our orientation. Onboarding is extremely important. There are certain things that are required for CMS, OSHA, that have to be done before a new employee goes out into the department and starts on a job or having direct patient care. We have to make sure these things are in place. So we went from a 1-day orientation to a basic 3 to 4 day orientation, depending on what the position is. It has been received very well. Day 2, a lot of that is talking about our culture and expectations on how we treat each other and how we treat our patients and our customers that come into the organization. So going very well and was well received. Tried doing some tweaks along the way since this was the first one. We learned from what you put in place that maybe you want to tweak it a little bit, but very positive and I think it's off to a great start. So those are my updates at this time. Any questions?
Any impact on leases for the new facility with the providers that are moving into the new building? with their previous locations.
And like I said, we're still reviewing everything to see how everything comes up.
A lot of moving parts to that.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of options for some of the new services.
Right, yeah, I bet.
Our goal is to obviously put people in the right place so that we have the potential for growth. And we also want to keep our provider down. Obviously, it's important that we don't upset anybody and do something that's gonna upset the provider, and we don't want to revolve the door, so. It's always about taking care of our patients and keeping the community happy, so.
Yeah, that would keep Dr. Miller in business.
Yep.
Acquiring new staff.
Exactly.
We didn't want that.
Exactly.
Any other questions, Tim? Thank you, Tim. Moving on to our nursing report with Curtis, our director of nursing.
Thank you, sir. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the CNA program. Shannon alluded to that. There's a lot of excitement on that as we have to think outside the box and how we're going to attract talent within the hospital. And we're looking at, particularly when you're looking at a CNA position, that's generally an entry-level position. We're a destination employer. People have to come here to work with us. They're not driving past us on the highway and going, let me see how it's there versus where I'm at today. So with that in mind, we're realizing that we've had difficulty getting CNAs in, and they're great to our patient care mix. They're very valuable employees. They're also, it's a beginning stepping stone where you get the CNA who then decides they want to go on in healthcare and continues their education and has their future goal for nursing. It also opens the doors that allows us to, well, physicians, yes. I've had many nurses becoming RNPs, which is pretty exciting. But also what's neat about this is that it also opened the door for entry just into our field, period. A lot of CNAs I've had go, this is good, but I think I want to be in patient access, or I want to go to billing, or I want to try something different. It really gets them in the door at a reasonable opportunity and affords them the breadth of what all can happen. I don't think people realize that healthcare, what the opportunities are. We're fortunate that way. The education department took the idea by storm. Jackie Bassett in particular, and with the support of their manager, Shannon, she went out and reached to the state. Washington State has actually been more proactive. They want to create a program that is consistent in the expectations of training for this level of employment. They have created a whole agenda to include all the courses, what needs to be done, the book work, how to do certifications, all of that work. And it will be eventually rolling out across Washington State for everyone that trains a CNA. So we're in the process right now. You need to have a director of that. I've gone ahead and signed on to be the director of this program. Education will do the education of it. And then we're hoping probably by fourth quarter that we'll start our process of onboarding and educating the CNAs. What's neat about this is that it's a different approach. When you talk about patient satisfaction, a lot of that has to do with does your clinical care staff, do they have a natural aptitude and compassion towards care? It's a little bit different when you're looking at that. So this is going to afford us, because we're going to be looking at people with an eye on how articulate are you? Do you look me in the eyes when you're talking to me? Are you listening? Are you an active listener? Do you really care about what's going to happen with this patient? That is going to be solely what we're focused on as we look to bring in people into this, because we can teach the clinical part of it, but you cannot teach someone to be kind, can't teach someone to care about people. That has to be something that's naturally there. So I'm really excited about that opportunity, because it's going to really hone into the quality of care that we're going to get attracted to the organization. The nurse leaders are besides themselves as well too, because I think the goal is that we'll get committed, and I think we'll also create a sense of loyalty to the organization, because we'll bring these people on, we'll educate them, we'll pay them while we're doing it, and then help them grow in their career. So I'm excited about that. So more to come as they get close to opening that position.
Three questions before you go on. First of all, do you have a budget for this? And what does what's projection for the cost for each person to be certified? Number two, where are they coming from? Are you tapping into the high schools on the island, for example?
We're gonna tap into high schools, we're gonna go to community things. I've already given my business cards out as I go in the community and see someone say, hey, have you ever thought about in medicine? And that's where I'm gonna empower the other nurse leaders to do the same thing. I did that when I was a banker for 25 years. I'd go in and I noticed someone who just was exceptional in customer service. And that's what this is about. You notice them as exceptional. Hey, if you've ever thought about it, give me a call. Here's my business card.
There's a girl at Wendy's that might be a good candidate.
From a strategic standpoint,
Seriously, you know, because these are entry level positions and maybe someone who is not available or has the means at this point to go to college. Currently, you can take this course in college, it's $1,000 and it takes a quarter. We're looking to bring them on. As far as the cost of this, we're down on 9 CNAs right now. So the intent is to have an 8% class and bring these on and deploy them into our open positions.
so back to the question about high schools. You responded with, I think, business card, but do you have a plan to go in and present to the high schools and create, because we have a lot of youngsters
Yes, we will have
that I'm associated with, that their mentality quite often is, there's nothing for me on the island. It's not for young people, I'm leaving. And so the high schools would be a perfect place for an active recruitment and to create a program for it. So,
And that's exactly why we're developing this, and that is the intent.
okay.
We're going after talent.
And and then the last thing is, what staff members are serving as the educators? Where have you gotten the staff for educators?
Our 2 educators.
Your current 2 educators.
Mhm.
So they had the additional capacity.
Yes. This hasn't been done in a vacuum. We included the powers of the and researched it. Right now, we've gotten to the point where there are no CNAs. When you're talking about a shortage of 8 and 9 CNAs, we're gonna have to resort to doing travelers to cover those positions. Well, a traveler CNA is a cost of a RN on staff. So it's a financial, it makes sense all the way around. So when this was done, it's looking at, okay, how do we capture a market that's doesn't have that education? How do we tap into that and create a avenue?
So the last thing is, from a budgetary and financial standpoint, this is the kind of program that would appear to be something that the foundation could really get their hands around based on community support. In other words, if we're preventing youngsters from leaving the island and giving them a career in healthcare, that's the kind of thing where some of that financial burden might be able to be shared with from a foundation, and people buy into that pretty easily versus a piece of equipment, which can be very important as we swing at the ambulances. So just think about that.
Already have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Greg, one of the things during the pandemic, most of the high schools shut it down, but the schools are actually putting together more and more job fairs.
There are job fairs, education, HR has already attended several on the island. The intent would be that we would do it as well, including myself, to go out and talk and have the real life. And I think it's more than just this program. We reached a point in our recovery that it's time for frontline leaders to get out in the community with various reasons to talk with soldiers. The next thing we'll talk a little bit about is ImmuneAware, and that has to do with employee health. We currently have an archaic system that was never intended to do what we're trying to use it for. It's very labor intensive. To bring it on this program will reduce in employee costs about $65,000 a year in about a 0.5 FTE in our employee health. And that's how we're also getting additional from asking for education, because this program will free up one of the educators from employee health. And that's exciting, is coming on. This is a system that will allow employees to self-direct and their own employee health records. You look at that. It will also is bi-directional, so anything that needs to be reported to the state will automatically get reported to the state when those vaccinations and care has been provided, Conversely, people coming in, it will also pull those reports from the state. It will also allow us the opportunity to pull reports, which are very important for compliance with DOH. Where today it's labor intensive. My last survey,
60 hours to hold it.
60 hours. So if you look at that and the lack of efficiency and time, and do away with that and have a system where we say, okay, I want this, extrapolate and export it. That's going to be a huge value. And quite frankly, myself, a lot of the things when you're looking at vaccination as the executive director of nursing, I want to see what our penetration is for flu vaccinations in our workforce. What's our penetration of vaccinations for this? And those kind of things that we're following up, like we'll be able to pull report and have a true accounting of how successful they are in patient safety as well as our own staff. So that's exciting. It will also keep track of vaccinations and things that are coming up due. It will automatically say, hey, it's that time of year, you might want to consider renewal of your hepatitis C vaccine. And it will automatically communicate with staff members. So that's exciting. We're hoping to have that roll out probably by October. The next thing we have, which is really neat, this is a huge win, and it's called Massimo, and that is one of our providers of our vital sign equipment. And so every patient comes in, I've probably heard it, we do what's known as an oximeter. It goes on the finger, it tests how much blood is in the, not how much blood, excuse me, how much oxygen is in someone's circulation system. It's a pretty standard, it tells us a lot on whether or not how well their circulation is and the perfusion. And that oximeter is a costly little piece, and it's we do have disposables for infection prevention, but we also have some reusables as well. This company can provide that equipment to us at a reduced cost. So what we're looking at doing is it's things that we need already and require to a higher quality product, but it's going to cost us less than what we're paying today. So we'll be saving more dollars in our expense for replacement of equipment. In addition to that, to encourage them, we are, if it's signed a 5-year agreement with them, they will also be bringing on $250,000 worth of new equipment to the hospital. And it's state-of-the-art vital sign machines that will go into our patient rooms. And timing is good because our current vital sign machines are hitting end of life in December 2024. These will go in, they're state-of-the-art, not costing us hospital anything, and upgrading our equipment to where we've got that latest investment. So very excited. A lot of that came through Russell, who is our biomed agility rep. It does a great job in identifying opportunities to capture and savings on our equipment as he goes through and does yearly maintenance on it. So what's neat about that is all three of these programs require interdisciplinary and multiple people. And we've got a team that is working well together as a team to make these things happen. It's not just one individual coming up with things, it's a whole team approach. And that's what makes these changes successful. Any questions?
Anything else?
Good job, Curtis.
Curtis, I had a meeting on the health department down in the county, so I serve on that board, and one of the things that came up at our last meeting was they had a write-up of everything that came out about the pandemic, basically, I didn't know if you've heard about it or if they've gotten a copy of it, but
It was part of that.
but it came up with all the goods and the bads and the things, the communications. And we talked about the fact that they need to get that out of the meeting, basically have all, the fire department, the school, the hospital, everybody, so that the next time that we have something like that we're geared for it. But I didn't know if you'd seen a copy of that.
I have not seen it yet. I was a participant. I did participate as they did the debrief on that. It had a lengthy response request for it, which I did respond to.
I'll give you a copy of it, because that's one of the things we talked about was, it's like the last thing you want to do is get that report and it goes on the shelf.
Right.
You know, that it has the things that need to be corrected, and all the good things, and you know, you need to form a pyramid, so if anything were to happen again, you have somebody at the top that kind of controls.
When I know the intent with that was also to identify what worked well and organize it so there weren't duplicate efforts,
Right.
so that we were maximizing all
Yeah,
participants.
we talked about the fact that it's a little, it encompasses all of Wyoming County, so that includes Camino. And there is a difference on how Camino handles it and how we handle it. Like I said,
No, I'd love to see that report.
yeah, I'll make sure that you get a copy of it. But it's something that, like I said, the last thing you want to see is it goes on the shelves in there.
Right.
But they were supposed to do a follow-up and then, you know, keep the thing going.
Unfortunately, I think that is something we can pretty much know that we're gonna have something again in the future, whether hopefully COVID is not gonna be the next pandemic. But I think it's reasonable to expect as the world changes that something else is around the corner.
Yeah, I'll make sure that you get a copy of that.
Awesome. Thank you.
We'll go into the combination of the human resource report and the administration's report. Nathan.
Okay, so.
Man, I have to clear the.
Okay, so in the second quarter, you see that we had highest turnovers in RNs. Part of that was travelers, part of that was people moving. As Curtis mentioned, the CNAs are still obviously a challenge for us. That's why we're starting that program. And then leadership, there were some directors that chose to leave, and then the patient registrar area is always a challenge. So top 5 reasons, yeah, go ahead. Top 5 reasons, again, personal reasons and moving make up well over half. Not a good fit. We did have a few people that just weren't able to perform at the level that we needed or that they were expecting. And then a few that were not available for work. So, but obviously the personal reasons and moving, which usually kind of combine, a lot of times the personal reason is moving. So that's our biggest area. So we have the next one. By quarter, we did come up a little bit. I mean, come down a little bit, I'm sorry, from previous quarter, and I hope that trend will continue. I think it will, especially if we're eliminating some of our traveling positions, starting to hire more for fit, as we talked about. The next one. Within 90 days of hire, we've only had a few. Again, not a good fit sometimes, but I think we'll see that trend continue to go down as we focus more on culture and organization fit. So hopefully continue that. We did have 43 hires last quarter, which is down just a little bit from before, but a lot of that was us reorganizing, restructuring, trying to figure out what we need to fix and how to fix it best. So, okay. Training terminations again were down the previous quarter, lower than all 3 years before. Next one. And then new hires, about the same as we were last quarter, down a little bit. That'll probably stay fairly consistent over the next quarter and hopefully start dropping off about the end of the year as we fill some of these open positions. Our recruiters doing a great job at getting us really good candidates for almost every position. Turnover percentage, again, starting to trend down less than 4%, which is honestly quite phenomenal in healthcare these days. So even though we are having some turnover, it's still considerably lower than you've had in the past and considerably lower than nationwide trends. So
Are those, when you look at the numbers, Nathan, is that annualized or is that for that?
for that quarter, yeah, just for that quarter.
So that if we were to just take 2023, right now, we'd be up at roughly 10% turnover. Would that be accurate? 5.3.
No, it would be an average.
Average though. Okay.
Yeah, so you'd be somewhere around 4.5.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I was asking a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the total annual turnover, of course, we have completed about half, so we're about 8%, so we are still down, even if that trend continues. Then again, there's a national average is about 26% across healthcare. And any questions?
If they could go back to your first slide, I believe it was the one that had the reasons for departure.
Moving in personal reasons.
Yeah, they just kind of seem strange. If he gets back, I'll see.
Right there, yeah, go back and.
There we go. Yeah. So no return from leave, for example. You know, it's the question comes up, well, what was that? Was it not a good fit?
No return from leave would be someone who was ill and was not able to return to work due to that medical condition.
Okay.
Right, no longer able to perform the job function, ongoing care, something like that.
Then you look at resignation. Is resignation not a good fit? Or is it they resign because they're moving?
Yeah.
You know, because in theory, more than one person probably resigned, but they probably had a reason.
It's usually all listed under personal reasons. I'll have to ask Paul what those two outliers are.
And then the resignation in lieu of termination, that would seem like it's corrective action, but
Yeah, it's okay.
right, yeah. A lot better numbers,
Yeah,
big improvement.
big improvement. And I think a lot of that goes to what we're doing with the culture. Changes with the new orientation that Tim talked about. We have a couple here that are traveling physical therapists. And they went through this new orientation this week, and they've been through many because they travel a lot to different organizations. And they gave us very, very positive feedback about this was one of the best orientations. So that team has done a phenomenal job.
That was like really kind of cool. I should do that on camera.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's like a rubber band. They slid them back.
They've coordinated. Synchronized swimming time.
Synchronized rolling chairs.
Well, we still have all the staff here.
Yeah.
How many patients do we see in our ER? What's the average up there, like even per month, per year?
We average around 50 a day, plus or minus.
Yeah,
I think our last average was 54.
And it's like,
right, you know, for the size, and this is for Julie, mostly, because I'm asking that question, I mean, you're doing. We're a small hospital, and I see that many people in our ER.
Yeah.
And if you compare that to a lot of the ER, of course, you're gonna be there.
That's why I'm calling.
Right, it's 50 patients a day on an average. It keeps them popping there. So, they do a phenomenal job up there. Like I said, is Julie doing some of this, helping us with some of the
And actually,
plans.
what's interesting, you look at our 80 right now, we used to average between 85 and 100 visits a day.
Yeah.
And it's realizing the impact of adding our 2 clinics and how successful that. been.
Yeah, the two walk-in.
Walk-in.
Right, the 2
Yes.
walking clinics, but we directed a lot of that lower acuity. So what's interesting is though our numbers have dropped, we're now seeing a higher acuity, which is
Right.
working better in tandem because it's requiring more nursing coverage to take care of people that are coming in.
Yeah.
So it's been a huge benefit, and I think the addition of a walk-in clinic in Coopville is going to further enhance our.
So I'm gonna add something, and I hope you're gonna agree to it. I think it's even bigger than that. In other words, if you have a low acuity report and you show up and you're level 3 and you're triaged below X for an extended period of time because there's too many of you, that's where the complaints come from. Because as far as they're concerned, their issue was as big as anything. You know, I mean, it wasn't a heart attack, but it was big. And so if you can reduce that waiting time with the lower acuity patients in the clinic, our reputation is impacted significantly, therefore increasing the willingness to go to the ED or to one of the clinics because they expect to be seen properly.
Yeah, and that is huge. When we were, particularly during the pandemic and things like that, I did a lot of service recovery in the waiting area for ED, where patients were upset because so-and-so came in after I did and they went forward. And to try and explain and educate that if ED sees people based on risk of life or limb.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it is. And I had one person get up there and say, well, are you telling me my info is important? I said, no, I'm not. It's important to you, therefore it's important to me. However, you're not at risk for life or limb. And so understanding that, and we also have the legality where you can't encourage people, if they come into the hospital and check the ED, it's against Intala without a medical screening exemption. You know, you can't go over here. So there's weighing that line between and educated. I think people are starting to understand the benefits, which is huge. And again, with consumer marketing, is sharing with the community the benefits and features of our walk-in clinic. So it's better utilized there. And I think too, with the military, we've got a population that's transient with young people that don't have mom and dad that say, no, don't go to the hospital for that, you call your doctor.
Right.
And so we're their lifeline and it's, which is totally good, I mean, no complaints there. But directing to what lifeline better meets that need is I think marketing will benefit everyone. It's a win for the community, it's a win for patients and our availability to meet the needs of everybody.
There's a question.
Anything else, Nathan?
I think we've hit the highlights. I've been doing some community presentations and have many more on my schedule for the next few weeks. And been getting very positive feedback from those. It is becoming more and more obvious just how little marketing we've done and how little people really know about the quality that we provide. So I'm really focused on that in most of those presentations. We do have a new marketing director, excuse me, and a new practice director for our clinics coming. They'll both be here in August. One's I think August 18th and one's the 28th, if I remember right. So they'll be here, and so already engaging with our marketing person on creating a marketing plan and how we're going to get all this out there. What avenues we could use, what our budget's going to have to be, things like that.
Not only the quality, but all the services. that we provide.
Exactly.
Yeah. Good job. You might. Anything out there? Is there any, number 7 was the contractor. Are there any contracts we need to address?
No, not today.
Okay, at this time, I apologize the fact that, we didn't plan on going into executive session, but those things will come up and we go into one just for a potential legal issue that can't wait. So we needed to go into that, and that's all we'll be doing is getting the information together. No vote will be taken, no decision will be made, and then we'll come back in. So basically, there's not a lot left on the agenda, so the staff is free to go back to their work if you'd like to. But we will come back into session and then we will do commissioner comments at that time. I don't think there's a reason to keep that on.
We appreciate your time.
Yeah, we value your time. So we'll let you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Try to come back on real quick, but I did not state how long we were going to be in executive session, so basically we'll be in there for 45 minutes, then we'll come back into regular session. Well, welcome back. We're out of executive session. There was no votes taken, no decisions made. At this time, we'll come back in. We do have the area for commissioners' comments. Is there anything that the commissioners want to start down the other end, Dr. Morgan?
No,
Nothing?
just positives. I'm very happy in the direction. I feel a healthy hospital makes a healthy community, and I want to continue to work on that.
So, and I know you relatively new, but you learn a lot, don't you? There's just so much.
There's,
about this hospital.
well, in any hospital.
Yeah.
In any hospital and
Well, I know you have
in any
experience.
town USA. But and that's what gives me a reference too, because I've been in big hospitals, right? When you're in a small rural hospital, knowing what our services being limited sometimes because of finances, because of the area, because of employees, we offer a lot, and it's getting better and better and better. So I'm happy to be sitting here.
Mr. Anderson, do you have anything?
Yes, I'm just excited with our recruiting is done for our medical staff, getting some urinary folks to be able to help that out, urology, and we also have family docs coming, and it's just awesome, and surgeons are coming, and it's all very positive, yeah, exactly. Making some great choices that way, and paying our bills and having some cash on hand that helps.
As unaccustomed as, actually.
As unaccustomed as I am. Go ahead, fill in the blank.
Speaking in public, I think I'm perfectly happy with where we are.
So I promised last time that what I'd like to do is to propose a little bit of a twist on our agenda in the future, and it's not for today, but I'll do that. And I'm gonna do that because I'd like to introduce, rather than commissioner comments, which you would generally think of, a minute or two or a couple seconds. I'd like to introduce the idea that we have especially future related strategic discussions at our meetings, and we include that as part of it. Relative to, for example, marketing. Today I would love to have heard people's reflection on the Lake Chelan conference.
Yes.
What we got out of it and what we intend to do, some of the strategic initiatives. Marketing, big time, you take the experience that Morgan has and any of us that have been involved in marketing outside of being a professional marketer. I think those are the kinds of things that we really need to talk through, that we can be very contributing to the organization, and they're more than just comments. Cash flow projections based on significant healthcare providers. I think that should have all of our attentions, and I would love to see those pro formas, which they started a couple months ago, taken out. Another comment, last minute meeting changes. There's been a number of them. It's just seeming, this is more for you, Nathan. There's been a number of them almost, in the last couple of weeks, where it was like within hours, that was shifted by a week, and so I would hope that we could minimize that. And one of them actually went back and forth, the compliance meeting, and also the credentialing and bylaws committee. So just in general, I think they need guidance to really watch out for that, because everybody's built their schedule, and it's a lot of people there that take it. Self-assessment, I would love for us to discuss at some point a board self-assessment on an annual basis, how we would do that, et cetera. Not today, I'm just throwing it out there, but I think it's.
We've done that in the past, and there is a standard form that we.
Good. And then just the idea that we use a minimum of 35 to 50% of our time for strategic discussion and governance kinds of things, policy, et cetera, discussion with the CEO. What's that?
Decision making also.
Right.
We're involved in many other aspects of the hospital, like the finance, and you guys are doing other things with facility and that. So I think that maybe just quick synopsis maybe of some of those could be, and not every time, but sometimes, so that people understand that we are actually engaged in many other areas.
Yep.
I mean,
So basically, that leads into the fact that what we talked about was, instead of having a report from each of these people that we have in the staff and status report, is that we would have that more on a quarterly basis.
right.
And that, basically we'd still have our finance one, and then basically we would have our admin. But that, Nathan would basically kind of give us an overview of all those. Keeps the staff out there still working, because they've got so much going on.
Right.
And that basically we have more time at our board meeting where it's just the commissioners in here working on these issues. That frees up the staff to get out there, but Nathan, like once a quarter, but then also he would basically say, okay, ahead of time, we would know that, maybe we need to have, Curtis in here to give us an update on something to do with nursing. But it would be like, that would be Nathan's call on that, but then, we kind of set it up that it's more once a quarter, then frees up the board meeting to get into these things like you're talking about.
Yep. And the whole discussion thing, you know, if I had an observation, and I don't know if Morgan senses the same thing, let alone James, and we're sort of, you know, some of the folks that have been on for 10+ years and 6, you know, and then you've got a couple of new kids, but part of my sense is that the board, because of some of the previous issues that have come up, is a little bit of gun shy about having discussions out in the public forum. And I think that needs to change over a period of time.
Yeah.
This place is not perfect, and it's not going to be, and it doesn't need to be. And so if it has a pimple or two, we should be able to talk about it in here. You know, if it's a legal issue, that's one thing, but I don't want to be on a board that can't have open dialogue about healthy things that need to be addressed, like the absence of marketing at a certain level or new services, that sort of thing, you know, given the level.
I think that's more valuable than having all these other reports.
That's right.
And there again, you know, it's like if we tried to do that along with these, we're gonna be in here until late at night.
Yeah, which brings up the point, finances. How deep do you want to go? I mean, I can keep you out there for 2 hours in financial reports. But do you really want to occupy everybody's time in going into the finite, small details about what's going on? I mean, we'll give you anything you want to know financially. This is a public corporation.
Yeah, no,
And everything's open,
And it's all available,
whatever you want.
yeah, no,
How
but
much time do you want to take?
just,
but
I'm interrupting and I'm doing it on purpose, but not to be mean or rude. I wasn't asking for that. I was just talking about discussion about all kinds of things relative to market. Given your last question, though, the answer is, if you would get direction from me, what I'd say is, when we start talking about the finance committee, what I'd like to hear from the head of the finance committee on the board is the strategic impact of some of the things that you're seeing trend wise. And some of the, you know, some of the relation, you know, like the $8 million. $8 million is potentially going to come in. What do you think, as our board member on the finance committee, what do you think are some of the things that we should consider to do with that, and then retiring debt, that sort of thing? So it's more strategic. The last thing I want to do is to go through that damn book. Because that's just, it ain't my job, number one, and it's certainly not my interest or our interest.
I'm finance, we can get the finance report from Paul at each of the meetings. He can put together as a copy of what we need to know. And then we can talk about it. But I mean, like I said, I don't think that we need to have each of these individuals here, but I think we do need certain reports. And but a lot of times it's easier for them to give us a paper report that we can see in our packet.
I mean, his report today. Oops, sorry,
Yeah.
Morgan.
well, and not every time will there be information. This one in particular with the tax credit just came to us on Monday. And we determined in our finance meeting that we're not, until that money is in our pocket, we're not discussing it in terms of where it goes, where it's appropriated.
That's been in the works for over 8 months.
Right,
That's how long
so
ago we
that's
started
how,
on that.
but then it's gonna take another maybe 6 to 8 months for us to actually receive it,
That's
so.
correct.
But I think that it's hopeful in the sense that, number one, it was based on this hospital staying alive and staying here to serve its community. That's a good thing. And, you know, so there's little nuances or little pieces that could be taken out of there, that you don't have to share the whole, you know, pizza. You get a piece, you get a little piece of the pizza. And we're all kind of doing different things. And I think that sharing a little bit of our insight from outside eyes, right? And maybe the way that the community's perception is well. Anyway,
I appreciate the conversation, discussion going on. When we have the whole staff in here, we're tying them up a lot. And
We
that's
are.
why we try to get through it all. And like I said, I mean, this is our time. And so I think we're better off spent by, you know, reducing down the amount of time that they're in here.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I
I think
agree with
the
that.
6 of us should be able to have very healthy dialogue, discussion, you know, et cetera, listen to various strategies, et cetera. And before I forget, you get a pretty good size attaboy on helping to secure that money. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, every once in a while, like, somebody does something that gets $10 or $100, but you know, when you manage to get $8 million, that's a couple attaboys.
That's just,
It's just,
no.
yeah. Wait till you hit the big time.
Yeah, wait till they get.
Yeah.
Well, and hospital staff in general, you can have meetings till you're, you know, till the cows come home. It is an unfortunate thing about, bringing everybody together, because there is a lot of meetings throughout the week that people are also not aware of, so I think minimizing having the CEO bring those to the table and then quarterly having them come in so that, that becomes kind of, people still see their face.
Nathan can still reach out and tell them, hey.
Yeah, if we have
I
something
need a
coming
quick
up.
report, paper report.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I make a motion to adjourn.
That's second.
But you can't do that until I say our next board meeting. Is Thursday, August 17th, 2023 at 12:00 p.m.
Gotcha.
So now you can make a.
Okay, the motion's on.
I second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Bye.
Thank you.
Good meeting.